So, first up, let's go ahead and talk about DAZN. So, one of the biggest pieces of news coming out of the combat sports world this week is that Canelo Alvarez is filing a lawsuit against DAZN and Golden Boy Promotions. He's alleging breach of contract. And to give you a high level overview of the situation, if you want more details, go follow Jason Cruz on Twitter. The dude knows his stuff, wrote a whole book about legal issues in combat sports, MMA specifically. He's one of the most knowledgeable sources out there about this stuff. So check him out for the actual details. But a high level overview of the situation is this. Essentially, Canelo's contract with DAZN, he gets certain purse structures based on the quality of opponent. So at the premium tier, which is judged at pretty much the sole discretion of DAZN, they decide who is a premium opponent or not. He gets $35 million per his boxing purse, which is when you heard about him signing with DAZN, that was the whole $365 million for so many fights. And it was such a major deal. That was all based on premium opponents. For anything less than that, and really not actually less than that, in most cases, it's up to DAZN, who is premium, who's not. If it's not a premium opponent, he gets a significantly smaller purse. And right now, Callum Smith or Billy Joel Saunders is waiting in the wings to fight Canelo. He's very much about those fights, but DAZN doesn't consider those guys premium tier opponents. So where that rubs Canelo the wrong way is that they're pretty much next in line to fight Canelo and get a shot at his titles. It's hard to argue that there's someone in the boxing world that's more of a premium tier. Triple G is listed as a premium tier, and a lot of people want to see that third fight, but there's been some roadblocks in terms of getting that deal done with the purse cut and also just the cross promotional, everything going on there. Don't know the specifics. Again, you'd have to do some more research to see why that fight fell out, but it did, right? We had talked about it last year at some point, and that trilogy just never came to fruition. So besides Triple G, those two are really, who's left for Canelo right now in the boxing world. And DAZN saying, sorry, that's not a premium opponent. Who is a premium opponent, you ask? Well, according to DAZN, premium opponents are listed as follows. Outside of Triple G, there is Oscar De La Hoya, who is 47 and has just recently come out of retirement. That's a whole, if you can't understand the absurdity of calling him a premium opponent, I don't know what to tell you. Then there's Jorge Masvidal or Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, what do those three have in common? Realistically, all three of them probably get destroyed by Canelo easily. I mean, Jorge probably has the best shot in the boxing ring with Canelo, but even then, in a pure boxing fight, I'm pretty sure Canelo would take that hands down. But what they also have is big drawing power, right? We've recently seen with the Kamaru Usman fight that Masvidal has kind of seemingly broached that next level of superstardom. They were able to get 1.3 million pay-per-view buys worldwide, around 900,000 or so domestically. That's a big needle-moving pay-per-view, and it wasn't Usman by all accounts. Definitely social media metrics and other metrics we follow really show that it was Masvidal reaching that next level, finally, moving up after defeating Nate Diaz and getting that BMF belt, really kind of catapulted him to a whole new realm of crossover stardom. So he's definitely got the needle power. Khabib Nurmagomedov certainly has the needle power in terms of just his devout following in MMA. He's really started to break some boundaries internationally, especially after the Poirier fight at UFC 242. I mean, he's really become kind of a superstar in the Muslim community. It's not surprising that he has finally taken that realm or taking that position rather as being a massive star in that community. And if he went up against Canelo, that would be a huge crossover fight. You've got the undefeated MMA star who's known for his wrestling going in and trying to box, and it's not going to be on the level of Mayweather McGregor, but it would certainly draw. It certainly would. And then Oscar De La Hoya, same thing. He's 47. I just talked about how it would be absurd in terms of, I think that's the weakest opponent for Canelo, honestly, from pure skill. Because even though Khabib certainly would need to, touch up his boxing and do all that, he's far younger, far fresher. He seemingly has a good chin on him. I feel like De La Hoya, at 47 is just asking for a brutal beatdown. Maybe not. Maybe he would be ahead of Khabib there. I might get reamed in the comments for this take, but I wouldn't put them that far apart either way. That much I would say. But again, everybody knows Oscar De La Hoya. Even, my friends who never followed boxing know Oscar De La Hoya is a boxer that has a name value and star power, and would maybe, especially during a pandemic, if they don't have anything else going on, might go ahead and, tune in to see Canelo versus De La Hoya. Plus, you've got a whole storyline that if you did De La Hoya versus Alvarez, obviously Golden Boy Promotions is run by Oscar De La Hoya. So you'd have this kind of like WWE-esque, former, stablemate fighting the boss type situations. So that whole storyline would definitely be, something that the media could play up, and I'm sure they would if that fight came to fruition. The point, though, of all of this, in a broader picture, and what I really want to focus on here, is that DAZN's in big trouble. I've talked to you guys before about how DAZN was looking to raise money before the pandemic. Len Blachowicz, the billionaire who really pretty much was DAZN's entire payroll for the first several years, has already decided before all of this craziness with COVID happened that he was ready to, kind of look for the door and exit, or at least, step back from the role he was playing as the major funder of the streaming service. And ever since COVID-19 happened, things have only gotten worse for DAZN. I mean, they now are looking to raise twice as much as they were before the pandemic hit. They are telling subscribers, hey, you can't get a refund. We're just going to delay your payments and then give you credits for the next X amount of months. They're pretty much locking people in to not allow them to cancel their service, which is huge. It's really a bad time for the promotion. And this is possibly the death knell. If Alvarez is able to either get out of his contract or, win in a court of law in terms of saying, hey, they breached contract, so I'm owed damages, I'm free to go wherever, that's pretty much it. I can't imagine DAZN is going to be able to hang on long enough to get the subscriber base and foothold they need in order to convince investors to pour more money into them, while they, again, go after their main goal, which is getting NFL rights, MLB rights, the major American sports, so to speak, broadcast media rights, which come up for renegotiation here in a couple of years. That's really what they're looking to do. Is they are trying to hold on until those media rights deals are up for bid, so that they can get some major players. Because if they get American football, or they get most MLB games or basketball, that would take them to a whole new level. And that's really what they sold Blachowicz on, was, hey, we are basically fund us, and then we'll eventually become, this streaming giant that will rival ESPN, will rival some of these other big streaming networks, and will lead your way to the future. That's what they sold him on. And quite frankly, the financials, even with, Alvarez and some of these bigger stars, Anthony Joshua, getting Bellator and some of these other MMA promotions to kind of round out their combat sports portfolio and use that as their entry into the rest of the sports markets, has, metrics on that are not good. That they simply are just not what they expected internally and what they were promising their investors. So, is this the death knell for DAZN? Very well could be. I mean, it's hard to see where they go from here. If they're able to negotiate a premium opponent and actually get the subscribers that come along with that, because that's really, again, what DAZN is looking for. They're looking for somebody who moves the needle, who's going to get people to sign up for the service, who they can maybe, sell on a one-off pay-per-view style event. I don't know if they're going to go that route, but who knows, especially right now, they're hurting for cash. They'll be looking for every penny they can get. And Callum Smith and Billy Joe Saunders are not going to do that. will hardcore boxing fans tune in? Sure. Even moderate boxing fans will probably tune in for those fights because it's an Alvarez fight, and you never know. But you're not going to really boost your subscriber count or get more viewers than normal if you have those fights. So DAZN's definitely up against the ropes here. If I had to call it, I would say that, yeah, I would say this is the beginning of the end for them. Could be wrong. They do have some good leadership there, but at the same time, they just haven't gotten the traction that they needed to in order to set up their bigger play at some of these bigger sports media rights deals. And without that foothold, you can't convince investors to keep you alive long enough or to invest, and give you the war chest you need in order to go after and outbid some of the television networks who are also on the ropes ever since the rise of streaming, right? Fox and some of these bigger broadcast networks are hurting for content and bleeding subscribers. ESPN is making that transition to ESPN Plus, but they still have the majority of their revenue and their ad revenue coming from their flagship television channel. And they need as much content as they can get. They're not just going to give those rights up and say, okay, you outbid us. If you're DAZN and you're hoping to win some of that stuff, you have to go big and you have to have a war chest or some financial backing in order to get this done. And right now they don't appear to have that. So I think this might be it for them. We'll see, but this might be the slow beginning of the death spiral for DAZN.